Tonight we navigate a complex mix of diplomacy, politics and global power plays. From Seoul's shifting stance on US trade ties to fresh warnings over the Middle East peace process and India's green leap forward on the world stage. And later in our deep dive, we unpack Donald Trump's most consequential move yet in the Russia-Ukraine war. The first direct US sanctions on Russian oil giants. Why now? What do they mean? And could this finally bring Putin to the table or push him further away? Welcome to World in Focus, and here are the top headlines of the day. South Korea's President Lee Jae Myung is striking a tone of reassurance ahead of US President Donald Trump's Asia visit. In an exclusive interview with CNN, President Lee described the US as a steadfast partner and welcomed Trump as a peacemaker, choosing diplomacy over division despite lingering trade disputes. His comments came just hours after North Korea test-fired ballistic missiles, the first such launch since Lee took office in June, a reminder of the volatility that still grips the Korean peninsula. Turning now to the Middle East, a region where diplomacy always seems to hang by a thread. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio has issued a pointed warning to Israel, calling recent moves to annex parts of West Bank threatening to the fragile Gaza peace process. Just last week, the Israeli parliament advanced two controversial bills aimed at extending sovereignty over parts of the occupied West Bank. These developments come less than a week after President Trump brokered what was hailed as a breakthrough deal to end a two-year conflict in Gaza. But the new annexation push and a surge in settler violence are now raising fears that the truce could unravel before it even takes hold. And in a story that offers a rare dose of optimism, India has moved up in the global forest cover rankings. According to a new United Nations report, India now ranks 9th in total forest area, up from 10th place last year, and continues to hold 3rd position in annual net forest gain. The UN's Food and Agriculture Organization attributes the progress to large-scale reforestation drives, stricter conservation policies, and community-led initiatives that have helped restore degraded land. And now for our World in Focus deep dive, a major turn in geopolitical chessboard of Russia-Ukraine war. US President Donald Trump has announced sweeping sanctions on Russia's two largest oil companies, Rosneft and Lukoil. It's a move that marks the first time the Trump administration has directly targeted Moscow's energy sector, a significant escalation after months of relying primarily on trade measures and tariffs. Rosneft alone accounts for nearly half of Russia's total oil production, contributing close to 6% of global output. Together, Rosneft and Lukoil export more than 3 million barrels of oil per day, meaning the sanctions could send ripples across international energy markets. Under the new rules, all US entities are now barred from doing business with either company or their subsidiaries. Speaking alongside NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, President Trump said there were tremendous sanctions and hoped the pressure could compel President Vladimir Putin to become reasonable. Trump's move mirrors actions taken just days earlier by the British government, and it aligns the US more closely with European allies who have already sanctioned Russia's energy industry. The European Commission called it a clear signal of collective pressure on the aggressor. Ukraine's ambassador to Washington also hailed the sanctions as peace through strength. But why now? For months, the Trump administration resisted sanctioning Russian oil directly, opting instead for tariffs on trade with countries importing Russian crude, including India. So what changed? According to senior officials, the shift reflects growing frustration in Washington over Moscow's refusal to negotiate a ceasefire. Just one day before the announcement, Trump cancelled his planned summit with Putin in Budapest, calling it a wasted meeting. Trump's critics call it a delayed reaction. Supporters say it's a decisive step that could finally choke Moscow's war revenue. For those wondering what's the difference between sanctions and tariffs, think of tariffs as a tax on goods. They raise prices, create leverage, and target trade. Sanctions, on the other hand, are a political weapon. They isolate a country's economy, cut off funding, and signal that diplomacy has failed. The timing of these sanctions, after months of hesitation, may be Trump's strongest attempt yet to break the deadlock in Ukraine. So that's all in World in Focus for today. Follow the Finance 360 for more.